This is the Plant Powered Challenge 2022, brought to you by Spectrum Health's Lifestyle Medicine team.
We're excited to be here today as we near the end of the 2022 Plant Powered Challenge. I'm Elizabeth Suvetti, Manager for Culinary Medicine at Spectrum Health. We wanted to make sure we have given everyone the tools and resources they need to be successful on their journey of incorporating more whole plant-based foods in their diet. We know that change is not easy, but finding other like-minded individuals within the community can be helpful when navigating change. Today, we'll be hearing from a few passionate community members who are change agents within their community, helping people to gain the knowledge and skills they need to be successful. Here with me today are Kim Enox, Kaylee Swanson, and Sherry Orlikowski, who are all part of the plant-based community and are here to share their stories and resources. Kim has been living a plant-based lifestyle since 2006. Her passion began as she discovered the impact of her diet toward the earth and animals after reading Food Revolution and Diet for a New America. A few years back, Kim, along with a team of others in the community, brought VegFest to Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was no small undertaking, and it was a great way to bring together people who have a passion for caring for their health, animals, and the planet. Kaylee has been predominantly plant-based since 2011, transitioning first to vegetarianism and then to fully plant-based in 2017. She is the founder of the Plant Powered Challenge. 5 years ago, she had a vision to bring people together with a common goal of encouraging them to eat more whole plant-based foods and providing them with the knowledge and resources to do so. Without Kaylee, the Plant Powered Challenge would not be what it is today. She also manages the Grand Rapids Vegan Instagram page to showcase many establishments that offer plant-based food throughout Grand Rapids. Sherry is a registered nurse who specializes in cardiovascular rehabilitation and lifestyle medicine. She is a certified plant-based nutrition instructor and is a Food for Life instructor with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. As a nurse, she unfortunately sees all too often the negative impacts of the standard American diet. She founded a local plant-powered for health support group, so everyone who is interested in learning about a plant-based diet has the opportunity to gather, share recipes, and discuss the latest hot topics. Everyone is welcome, whether they are entirely plant-based or just learning to add more plants to their diets. Let's get the panel started with some questions for our panelists. Sherry, let's start with you. Why did you decide to start eating more whole plant-based foods?
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Well, I got interested in plant-based nutrition just about over a decade ago. I had returned back to school to be a registered nurse, and I found I loved how the body works and got very interested in learning about that. But what I wasn't loving is that I was really exhausted. I was juggling on my roles as an employee, as a wife, as a mother, and then as a student. And I just found I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I stumbled across a documentary called Forks Over Knives. And in that, I learned about the power of our diet to affect a change to our health. And I decided to try a 30-day challenge for myself. I spent about a week ahead really kind of looking at things that were familiar to me that were already plant-based. Like I already liked pasta, like whole wheat pasta with marinara sauce and broccoli as a dinner, and maybe a bean burrito or a veggie stir fry. So there were things that were already familiar to me. And I thought, well, I'll just get them ready. And then some things I had to do a little twist, like maybe black bean tacos instead of more of my traditional beef taco. So I found the things I wanted to get started, tried a 30-day challenge, and I could not believe how much it affected my life. I was waking up before my alarm. I felt increased energy and vitality, and I had weight falling off of me. And so, and I was enjoying the food I was eating too. So I just kept going. And it actually turns out that this month is my 10-year vegiversary. I've been doing it for 10 years now.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. Yeah, it is amazing when people start to make change, what a difference it makes. That's part of why with this challenge, we do like to kind of give people that 30 days to really, practice it, give some things a try, because it does take time for people to start to see some of those changes. But it is amazing, like you said, in just a short amount of time, how much you do start to see some really positive health changes.
Absolutely.
So great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kaylee, would love to hear from you as well. What are some reasons in which you kind of drove you to drive towards eating more whole plant-based foods?
So my plant-based journey started about 10 years ago as well. My dad had received a cancer diagnosis, and I started researching the best diets for, cancer journey and someone who is looking to heal a chronic disease. So in my research, I was continuously pointed in the direction of whole food plant-based eating to help cure chronic disease and also to help manage a cancer diagnosis such as his. In solidarity with him, I gave him some resources. He went predominantly plant-based, and I went vegetarian with him. So, over the course of time, his lipid panels and blood pressure and all of those numbers improved. Unfortunately, my dad did pass away in 2013, but I did keep up with my diet of being a vegetarian. And then over the course of a few years later, started to do some more research around whole food plant-based eating and then also learning more about the effects that our diets have on the planet and then also the animals we share this planet with. So in 2017, I decided to go completely plant-based, and I have not looked back. And it's really been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kaylee, for sharing that. It's great to hear, that, unfortunately, it does take for some people, life things, happenings, for some people around them, within their family members or themselves, medical conditions that drive people to start to then ask more questions about what they're eating, what they're putting in their body, and how that impacts their overall health. So it's unfortunate, that your father did pass away, but also very inspiring that it inspired you to then make changes and ask questions about the foods you're eating. And I know you've been phenomenal with spreading the word in the community. And that really kind of was your kind of probably starting point to do what you've done today. And that's why we're here today with the Plant Powered Challenge, since you're our founder with this program. So thank you for sharing that. Kim, I know you have been eating plant-based since 2006. You're very experienced with it, but could you tell us about your journey a little bit and what it's been like for you since then?
Well, I started as a vegetarian in 2003. So and then going whole food plant-based diet since 2006. So like my plant-based journey has been almost 20 years now. I can't believe that. But well, my journey has been, I guess I can say I ate a lot of food, really a lot of food. Food was just it's like a gateway to open to different areas. The food just, to me, it was the meal. But after that, learning about the nutrition and learning about the GMOs and, all these different aspects related to the food. And it just opens up a lot of different areas in my life. Since I became a vegan and going for whole food plant-based diet for over 15 years, I learned about the animal cruelties and I learned about the environmental impact about our food and then related to the social justice. So there was a lot of things opened up to my life and being more conscious about my choice and just looking for the area that I've never realized, in the past. So, and of course, a lot of trials and errors and, I discovered so many new foods. And again, I said, I'll eat a lot of food because I don't really have to limit my calories because mainly the whole foods diet, just the low calorie, and it gives you satisfaction. And I don't have to binge into, those empty calories. So yeah, I mean, it just it has been great to me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It is neat. You're exactly right. Like it's not like it's always like a clear, smooth path for everybody. There are ups and downs. You may have days where you're doing really well and you're like you're really embracing, what you're eating. Other days you might feel like I didn't do as great today, and that doesn't mean that like that's it. You can keep going, keep challenging yourself. And I know you're a huge influencer of all the people that you're around, being, one of the key people that got Veg Fest up and running. I know I was part of that from a person that was there representing my business at the time. And I know it was no small undertaking. That was tons of work, tons of hours that you and others really gave of yourself in the community. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. Kim, I want to stay with you. I know sometimes it can be challenging for people. They might feel like you might get questions around like, will you get enough nutrition? Are you starving yourself? Oftentimes right now in the media, there's so much about like, do you get enough protein and do you enough calcium? And you can get challenged quite a bit. How do you handle that when you get those types of comments? And how do you feel kind of around making sure you're getting enough nutrition with what you're eating?
Well, I have no doubt that my foods are nutritious because, when we look at the standard American diet, it is mainly the meat centered. So we know what meat has, like high cholesterol, which we do not really need. So I have never doubt about my food being malnutritious, and it has plenty of not only proteins but also all these micronutrients. And I go for mainly like different colors of food as well. So that gives a different variety of phytochemicals. So I never really doubt about my diet being a little bit deficient on anything. But sometimes we come across different questions about, the protein questions or iron questions and like that. And I normally not to really argue with it because sometimes people just asking a question to debunk my vegan diet. So if they are really interested in, then yes, I go on it, share my experience. But other than that, I'm just telling them simply that, hey, my food is wonderful and delicious. That matters.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great when you can start to address some of their concerns. When you're eating a lot more whole plant-based foods, really what we would say is you are getting a lot of great nutrients. It's more so when you're not eating those foods, you should be asking yourself, am I getting enough fiber? Am I getting enough protein? Because oftentimes people are not. Sherry, I wanted to turn things to you. I know you work as a nurse. And you're probably very familiar with people that consume the standard American diet and the impact that can have on maybe it's your patients, maybe family and friends around you. Could you say about how you see that standard American diet impact some of the people and their health that you care for?
Well, I think that often we are used to living in kind of an unnatural environment. We're used to eating fast food, things from a factory instead of things straight out of the ground. And so we can get a little bit used to the fact that people around us, our friends and our family, are being impacted by heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and obesity. And we might even think that's normal. And it's not normal. It is a consequence of this life that we're living, and that we can impact a change on that. Really, about 80% of those diseases, of those chronic diseases, can be affected and changed with lifestyle changes. I know a friend of mine, Paul Chatlin, who he was able to avoid bypass surgery by changing his diet. He was actually on the gurney going ready to go in for a bypass. And he had a doctor who had had some introduction to lifestyle medicine and offered that choice to him if he would be willing to try that. And he decided to take him up on it. And along with his provider, he changed his diet, he was monitored, and he avoided the bypass. So this is not a 1 in a million long shot. This is how our bodies heal when we support with whole plant foods and great lifestyle changes.
Wow, that's a very inspiring story. I really appreciate you sharing that with everybody who's watching. Because I think oftentimes people might feel like, oh, when they've reached that point, that's it for them. They have to go, into those procedures. I can't imagine at that 11th hour, making that decision. That's got to be a tough decision that he made, but really inspiring that he did. And great that you're able to share that story, because hopefully others might feel like, there's hope for them if they're struggling with various medical conditions that are tied more towards their diet and what they eat. Kaylee, I'd love to turn it back over to you. I know when we talked about when people are eating more whole plant-based foods, it can be a challenge sometimes. It's not always easy. There can be good days, bad days, days you're really motivated, days you're not as motivated. Do you have any tips on how to maintain a plant-based diet? What has helped continued for you to kind of focus on that way of eating?
Yeah. So the biggest tips I have for staying plant-based is to always remember your why for going plant-based. So, for me, it was, just kicking off my journey into a plant-based eating was my dad having that cancer diagnosis and that chronic illness. But also, keeping in mind, the other reasons why I'm passionate about this lifestyle is, learning more about how our diets impact the planet, and then also the animals in the animal agriculture industry. That was a huge motivator for me to not only stay plant-based, but also shifted my mindset that animal products are no longer food products to me anymore. So it's not like they're tempting me anymore. And keeping in mind that there are vegan versions of those products that taste to me just as good. Keeping in mind too to keep that whole food plant-based version of those foods as the forefront of the diet, but also knowing that there are sometimes we want to indulge in things like a burger or a pasta or ice cream or things like that. And there's always a vegan version of those foods. The other tip I would say is to being open to trying new things. Although I have eliminated dairy, eggs, and meat from my diet, I've actually expanded my palate greatly. I've included tempeh and tofu, seitan, a variety of different beans and legumes, and also a lot of different seasonal fruits and vegetables that I didn't usually eat. So I feel that my palate has actually greatly expanded, which was really great news, because you kind of initially go into this way of life thinking that you're giving something up, but it's very quite the contrary. I felt like I added so much to my diet.
Yeah, I think many of us here would completely agree with you that it can initially feel like it's going to be limiting in some way, but you actually realize it opens your world up to a whole new flavors and ingredients, and which allows you, as we know, to like mix and match all different kinds of combinations. And so I think really it's that being curious is always helpful when you go into it, and being open to try new things. I would like to talk about with Kim about kind of your palate a little bit. I know you also have children, Kim. So obviously you have to be thinking about like, what are they going to want to eat? What has your experience been sustaining a plant-based diet? And what would you say is someone who is beginning a plant-based diet with a limited food palate, maybe a picky eater out there? And how have you if you could speak about how you've sustained this with your children, and what's worked best for you?
As Kaylee said, you can start from very simple. Being a plant-based diet is not about the perfection. Nobody is judging you to become a 100% whole food diet like overnight. So don't worry about that kind of judgment call. I think you can start from the comfort food that you normally enjoy, and as Kaylee said, try to veganize it. A lot of foods that we enjoy day to day, it's just like maybe just a number of things, less than 5 stuff that we enjoy. So you can, let's say you like the pasta, and instead of putting let's say meat crumbles or sausage kind of things, but you can just using the vegetable, different kind of vegetable. And then you share the gain, the being curious and being brave about your food choices. You may not like avocado right now, but everybody's taste bud resets every 21 days if you stop having it. So you may realize that all of a sudden, I kind of enjoying the flavor of avocado after a month or two. So never give up, keep trying. That will, help you to just expanding your limited food palette. So that's kind of my one suggestion. And talking about like a limited food palette, my children's, so they have very limited the favorite food that they like. So I don't really want to go like so many different foods and overwhelm them. So instead, I have, let's say, 2 weeks of the meal plan. So I kind of keep rotating. So, there's like about 10 different meal items, and I just rotate what they like. So they tend to enjoy, the regular food, the familiar food that they are having. And then I can add a different vegetable here and there. And so then they can try the different one. And we always talk about, trying new things. And there's just so many different cuisines out there. If you're going to limit yourself, you only eat the same stuff all the time, that you may never know, what Chinese food tastes like or Thai food tastes like. And then, raising children as vegan is sometimes challenging because we as an adult have a strong motive being a plant-based diet, normally like health or the animal conscious. Children doesn't have that specific goal yet. So we as a family try to plant the seeds that why we're eating plant-based. And especially for children, they tend to understand much better than adults. So we tell the children, animals are our friend, so we don't hurt them. And that works really great for them. And so anytime they are in the social environment, let's say, for example, like Halloween season, they gather a bunch of the non-vegan candies and chocolate, dairy chocolate and things like that. And we encourage the kids to enjoy that spirit, but bring all the non-vegan items, and then I replaced to the vegan items. So they don't really tempted to eat those, non-plant-based foods, and they bring it up, and then we just give it out to someone else. Or most of the time I throw it away, and then I just replace to their plant-based snacks. So just being creative, especially raising children as a plant-based lifestyle, and you need to be a little bit more creative, but it works. You don't have to really sacrifice, what you believe, what you truly believe.
No, that's terrific. I think you hit on so many key points. I know as you were speaking, I saw others in the panel, their heads nodding and agreeing. Kind of that palate reset is a huge thing, really having people reset their palate. We know as people start to consume less salt, less sugar, they get used to foods that will taste salty or sweet, even though they don't have as much salt or sugar in them. And so, it comes to really all the foods you're eating. You can do that palate reset and start to really enjoy those flavors that otherwise you may not have enjoyed when you're eating so much of that heavily processed foods. Sherry, I'd love to hear from you a little bit around, people that do struggle with some of the palate changes as they're making that transition and getting used to that plant-based eating. Any thoughts or tips you have for people as well, and how you have suggested for people to kind of navigate through that?
Oh, for sure. I think to expand on the great tips that we've already talked about is that I think that people really get an idea that their tastes are fixed and part of their personality. And that's not true. Sometimes people think, well, I love this and I hate that. And if you don't know that about me, you don't know me very well. And it's not true. Our minds are wired to like the things that are available for us. So our tastes can change. And the fancy term for that is neuroplasticity. But our taste changing, people do kind of recognize, usually they've had some kind of experience with that. Sometimes it's, you mentioned salt. That's a pretty big one. Sometimes people have tried to back off on their salt intake. And at first it can feel miserable, that they feel like, oh, everything tastes bland. But after about a couple of weeks or a month, they might go to their favorite restaurant and that very salty dish that they used to love tastes terribly salty. Well, their tastes have changed. Their mind has changed. So if you go forth with that in mind, you give yourself a little bit of grace and know that what you focus on wanting to eat for whatever your motivation is, and here we're talking typically about a healthy change, that your taste will change and you will love your food. And like we've all kind of discussed, you're going to try new things. It's going to expand those flavor palettes, and you will be, I mean, everybody I know in the plant-based community is really loving their food. I like to mention we are doing a plant-based challenge where people may feel like, oh, they have to change everything for the 30 days. And they may, but about half and half people like to, when they want to eat more plant-based, they will either do a completely all for one, a challenge for a period of time, or they may just make small incremental changes. And you know what? Either way is right. It's really up to what your goals are and what's best for you. I think sometimes having the idea that you've got to completely change, you think you need to have a whole recipe book full of recipes and learn all sorts of new things. But like I mentioned, when I did my challenge, is you probably already have dishes that are almost all the way plant-based, and you could make them plant-based just with a little bit of a twist. So if you make moderate changes, you may get moderate results. And if you make a big change, you may notice a bigger result. I do try to just encourage people to, if you're going to make a challenge this year and do a big change, make sure you stay in touch with your medical provider, because these changes can be powerful and they may need to adjust some of your medications. So you always want to stay in touch with your provider and let them know what you're up to.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's definitely, we do tell people, like, if they are looking to make some drastic changes, always stay connected with their medical provider, because you're right. There are times where they have to work with you, right? You have to be honest with them about what you're doing and how you're changing your diet, so that they start to see your numbers change. They recognize maybe what that comes from, and it might be changes to your diet and improvements in that space. So yeah, I think it's great. We do tell people we meet them where they are. So there's a whole spectrum of kind of healthy eating. And if you're in one realm of maybe not eating so healthy, maybe doing a lot of fast food, we would suggest even you can start to cut out the soda pop or maybe the fried foods, and, take baby steps to get there. Because going cold turkey, or as we might say, going cold tofu, isn't always the best way to go for everybody. For some people, it's just trying to have that, maybe like the apple a day, right? Keeps the doctor away, or just some of those things as you start to say, like, could I add some greens to my dinner tonight? Could I add, some more vegetables to what I'm making tonight? Or, you mentioned a lot of times people already have the recipes. They just have to tweak them a little bit to help enhance them. And then it really crowds out those other more processed, not as good for you foods, because you're really eating a lot more of those whole plant-based foods that we know are just packed with great nutrients. So yeah, I think great tips and advice. Kaylee, I know you're a little bit into social media a little bit, and run a Instagram page here in Grand Rapids focused on going out to eat. I know going out to eat can be very challenging for people sometimes, because they might feel like, I want to go out to eat. I maybe want to go sit at a table and be with my friends or family, but I have no idea what to order. Where do I even go? Any thoughts or tips for people on I know people are watching in Grand Rapids and beyond. So maybe if somebody's in another city, in another state, what would you recommend for people when they're going out to eat to kind of navigate some of those tricky experiences?
Yeah, so for the Grand Rapids folks, thankfully we live in a city that is very accommodating to plant-based eaters. So going out to eat is not that difficult of a task as it was once, maybe 10 years plus ago. So, the thing that I would recommend though for anyone is to, look at the menu ahead of time. There's usually a plant-based or vegan option on the menu. If there isn't, usually another option can easily be accommodated and veganized so that you can partake in going out to eat, which is, it's a big part of most of our lives, is being able to still do that and socialize with friends and family who are not plant-based. So you don't want to completely separate yourself from that part of your life anymore. And thankfully, it's just so much easier nowadays to actually to go out to eat and enjoy those plant-based options. The other thing too, and I've done this on many occasion, is I've asked if the chef would be willing to accommodate if there is nothing on the menu for me. I've asked if the chef is able to whip something up, and every time they've said absolutely. So they, for anywhere from getting a pizza without the cheese on it and just all the other toppings and red sauce, or having them whip up some spaghetti with marinara sauce and some grilled veggies, or some, adding some beans in there. The side salad is always typically an option. That's not something we all generally want every time we go out to eat. So thankfully, again, we have the opportunity to get some of those vegan options. I think it's important too that, we are open-minded about trying those, maybe mock meats or mock cheese options out there. Again, treating this as an occasional treat as opposed to something that you have in your daily dietary choices. I have struggled with some of my, lipid panels and health numbers because I was partaking a little bit too much in some of those vegan processed foods. So making sure that those are more of a, occasional treat as opposed to a daily food dietary choice.
Yeah, you're right. It's exactly, just trying to, have those social settings and find that balance between, not too many of those processed plant-based foods versus, trying to have more of those whole plant-based foods. And I do recognize when you go out to eat, it can be tricky. And I think that the more people are starting to order that way, the more that restaurants are going to start to accommodate them and have a lot more options, more than just a black bean burger. Not that I don't like a good black bean burger every now and then, but there are some restaurants now who start to have a lot more unique options. And it makes it kind of fun to be able to go out and engage and try those, different foods out. So you talked about, socialization. I know it's something we're all looking forward to getting back to more. But Kim, I know back in the days when we could socialize a lot more and be more together. Could you talk about like some of those social settings? Maybe it's a party, maybe it's a gathering, maybe you're having people over or going to someone's house. And we know that like, we're not expecting all of our friends are going to eat exactly what we eat, nor do we eat what they eat. But how do you navigate some of those social settings with ease such that you're setting yourself up for success? You're not feeling at the end as though either you're starving or you ate a lot of things that you wish you hadn't.
So I really, don't want to sacrifice your choice in this social environment, because this social gathering is all for having fun and having nice conversation, not stressed out what I'm going to eat and things like that. I usually take care of that ahead of time. So if I was invited to somebody's house, I let them know that, hey, I'm eating plant-based diet and I don't eat this and that. A lot of time the hosts are appreciating you give them a upfront notice, because host wants to entertain their guests, so they don't want anybody be upset about they cannot have any of the food. So just let them know. And if they have no idea what to prepare, and you can either bring your own or just let them know what kind of plant-based snacks and appetizers that they can make. Like you being a resourceful for the host. And if it is the restaurant environment, as Kaylee said, you can check the venue ahead of time, and you will find a vegan option most of the time. And then you can double check if they don't have anything, and you can request if they can accommodate. So in the social gathering, I guess my goal is to enjoy the conversation and having fun rather than focusing on my food. And then I guess the more problem or some uncomfortable moment that I have experienced is the questions that people are asking, because a lot of time, when we are eating all together and then my food looks different than the rest of the people, and they tend to, question about my food. And then I said, hey, this is a plant-based food and blah, blah. And they go on a different questions. A lot of time they're really curious, but sometimes they just, wanted to discard my, choice. So that in that case, I just don't engage too much about my diet, based on they are really curious about it, or they just wanted to belittle my choices. It's like you can pretty much tell they are really open to my suggestion or not. So try not to engage, or try to, we call, convert somebody to a plant-based diet, because I know that nobody really can flip their switch overnight unless it is a really dramatic event or something. But my point is, though, that when you are in that kind of conversation, then you can just naturally share, what you like, and just, thinking about, I'm planting the seeds. This person might not be so interested at this moment, but maybe after 20, 30 more people after me talking about the benefit of plant-based diet, the person may eventually try and they reach out to me, because I have so many experiences like that, especially like my close relative, and she was always being belittled about our plant-based food. And then after numerous years later, now she's open to it, and we haven't really pushed her to eat plant-based diet, but she just asking us, like, what kind of food is good. And she's just sharing, like, we've been trying tofu and things like that. So everybody has a different journey in this plant-based lifestyle. So I'm always thinking in a social gathering that I'm just planting the seeds to maybe open up for the opportunity for that person.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. I think just recently I heard someone sharing with me around 10 years ago, their doctor told them that they, because of their health concerns, should switch to a plant-based diet, and didn't, and heard it a few more times, and not until just recently finally said, like, okay, I'm going to make change, and then really started to see those health benefits that they could have experienced 10 years prior had they taken their doctor's advice. But you're right, Kim. It sometimes takes, it's just like marketing, right? Like you see things multiple times, so you're like, oh, now I want to buy that thing or get that thing or engage in that particular activity. And so that's part of it, and that's part of really what comes with this challenge is it's not just one day. It's not just one piece of information. It's really bringing in different people from different perspectives. That's why this community panel was so important, because, all three of you work in different realms within the Grand Rapids community, but you're all very passionate about it for maybe different reasons. And I think it's neat for people to hear from different people what their perspectives are and why, and then they can take that information and decide how do they want to make decisions with their health. Sherry, so I'm going to switch it to you now. You are, everybody here is a wealth of knowledge, but I know you've done a lot of work with the various groups that you've set up and support groups within the community. You've done a lot of studying and research in this space. How do you take all this knowledge that you have and then pass it on to your patients? Do you find that some of your patients want to hear from you? Are they interested? Do you kind of gauge it based on, how they're feeling when you're talking with them? I know you work with a lot of cardiovascular patients. If you could maybe talk about that a little bit, I think it'd be nice for people to hear from you on that.
Okay, well, I think that it's very true what Kim was saying, what you were saying, Elizabeth, that we find teachable moments where we can plant seeds for people. And certainly while they're in the hospital, I definitely have all my traditional roles to fulfill, but patients tell me little clues of what they are dissatisfied with. When you're in the hospital, it's a time where a lot of people are open to learning about how they could not have to be in the hospital or how they could do better going forward. So I do find, based on what's meaningful to them, their diagnosis, what they've opened up the door to, I find pieces of information to be able to share with them to plant those seeds and get them thinking. And if they are interested in making a change, and this goes for everybody, it's not what you do 100% of the time perfectly. It's what you do most of the time. And so I think that gives people a little bit of confidence to dip their toes in the water and to try it out and learn more. I always try to teach people that their choices are powerful. I think I mentioned a little bit before that sometimes when you're just make moderate changes, you get moderate results. And maybe sometimes people don't think that what they're doing, if they make a small change, is going to, make any difference. And so they just kind of fall back on what makes them happy. So I like to let them know, because maybe they've never heard it from anybody before, that their lifestyle changes can either prevent disease, help slow it down, stop it, or even in some cases, reverse disease. And they may have never heard that before in their life. So I like to drop those teachable moments. And then depending on the feedback, I refer them to other practitioners that are also knowledgeable, and we kind of can help build a team of people who will support them in those changes that they'd like to make.
Yeah, I love that concept, planting the seed. So relevant for our conversation today. Around really, it is, you have to start somewhere making those small changes. But you're right, the bigger changes you do make, the bigger impact you'll see. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Sherry. And thank you for all the work you're doing with your patients and being that voice to them. Because I know a lot of times people do want to hear things directly from their medical providers to feel like it's very credible information. So thanks for working so closely with those patients.
Oh, thank you. And I thank all of the doctors, nurses, dietitians, everybody who is, and everybody in the community who's interested in this, because it does reinforce. If it's only coming from one source, people can ignore it, but if they're hearing it, and this is just building, I guess, on what you said, Elizabeth, is that marketing. It's like hearing it from different people, you really start to think, well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I should look into it. And it helps build that community and build your care team.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. So Kaylee, let's shift back to you. Kaylee, oftentimes people will come to us and say like, oh, eating whole foods can be expensive. It can be maybe unrealistic. I don't have time to prepare meals. What have you found are some ways to manage to stay on budget while eating more whole plant-based foods? And do you find it manageable to be able to get, great nutrition in throughout the week? Whether I know you work as well, so you manage a busy schedule. How have you navigated that?
Well, luckily, whole foods are some of the most economical foods out there. So I would just recommend keeping this as simple as possible and sticking with rice and beans, oats, seasonal vegetables and seasonal fruits, looking for canned vegetables, frozen fruits, and sticking to the basics of whole food plant-based eating. And then also being okay with maybe making some of your own products. So that could include making your own oat milk or almond milk, making your own peanut butter, doing nice cream with bananas instead of going out and buying a pint of vegan or plant-based ice cream. So being okay with making your own food, meal prepping every week so that you have those items on hand, and just kind of keeping it basic so that you can just enjoy those like simple but hearty beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, fruits and vegetables, and grains, so that you can really enjoy the full benefit of a whole food plant-based diet without breaking the bank. So that's my biggest tip for keeping this a manageable diet in terms of economics.
Yeah, I know when we talk today, for some people it may feel like, oh, it's overwhelming or where do I begin? But really, it's starting small. It's those little things. Like you said, it could be just stocking your shelves with some canned beans, having some rice on hand that you can cook, canned tomatoes, frozen fruits and vegetables. Those are all great things to use. It doesn't have to be, always cooking from scratch, chopping every single thing up. There are some shortcuts out there where you're still, frozen vegetables that are already chopped up are a great thing to throw into a dish, and it saves you a lot of time. So, finding some of those shortcuts can be helpful. All right, Sherry, let's talk about resources. So people that are looking to learn more and they're, curious and they've done this challenge and want to learn more, what are some resources out there that you recommend to people who are trying to make more of this transition to more whole plant-based foods?
Well, whether you're just getting started in the challenge or you finished it, I think that one of the first most important things is to find a tribe, find people who are interested in at least making some changes into their diet like you are and could share recipes and share some of these resources. So I felt so strongly about that I started a plant-based nutrition support group in town called Plant Powered for Health. And currently, because of COVID, we're meeting just online, but our just a baby blog, if you'd like to reach out, is plantpoweredforhealth.com. And my email is plantpoweredforhealth@gmail.com. But if you're looking for recipes, resources, there's a ton online. There are groups online. A few good ones are, like, I started with Forks Over Knives, that documentary, and Forks Over Knives website has a ton of how to get started, recipes, beginner's guide. A really great website that I love, near and dear to my heart because I am a Food for Life instructor for them, is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and that's pcrm.org. They are a nonprofit research and advocacy group, and they do nutrition research. Doctors, dietitians, researchers, and nurses, they do the research and then they lobby Congress on and ask them to make laws based on the research and not industry influence. So they actually have their own 21-day kickstart called 21daykickstart.org. And you can use that like a recipe book, or you could do a challenge any time of the year, and that's completely free. And for those of you out there who are either medical providers or you're just really into how the body works, like how I got started, there are conferences out there where you can learn more. And I'd like to tell you about the Plant-Based Prevention of Disease Conference, and that is ppod.org. It's p-pod.org. These are just a few resources, but my goodness, there's a lot online, and there are a lot of people who will welcome you and share ideas. And I hope that soon we can get past COVID and we can get together and have our potlucks and movie screenings and things that we've done in the past, and friends, food, and fellowship.
Yeah, we know what a great, how much community impacts things. That's part of really what we're focused on today is, you don't want to have to do it by yourself. It's fun when your friends or family join you on various things, whether it's challenges like this, but just having people around you who support you. So yeah, those resources were terrific. We'll have to put those in the chat so people can easily find them. Thank you for sharing all of those. Here at Spectrum Health, we also have within our lifestyle medicine practice a lot of great programming for people. We have all of our virtual culinary medicine classes are open to the public. They're fun, engaging, super delicious, where you get to kind of cook together through the guidance of a chef. And at the end, your meal's done, and you get to sit down and enjoy a meal in your own home kitchen. So those are fun for people to try. We've got lots of those classes they can sign up for. Also, we have our lifestyle medicine specialty practice. It opened up last year at the Downtown Market Teaching Kitchen in Grand Rapids, where we have 3 physicians there that see patients within lifestyle medicine. We have chefs and dietitians and health coaches, and just all sorts of great programming around our kind of key 4 pillars of health, that being nourish, connect, move, and restore. So everyone might have different pieces of their lifestyle that they want to focus on. And so we try to, focus with each individual what they're looking for. If anyone hasn't joined our Lifestyle Medicine Facebook group, please make sure you do that. It's a great way to kind of have resources come up periodically. We share classes are coming up. We share articles and blogs. So it's a fun way just to kind of keep getting that marketing information, as we talked about that reminders of why you're doing this, the health benefits. And then we also send out a monthly newsletter that has information for what's coming up. So with that, ladies, any last things we want to share? Anything you wanted to say but didn't that you'd like to squeeze in before we wrap up today?
I think we're good.
I would just like to say, go for it. It's the more plants you bring into your diet, the better as a general rule. And it's fun, and make it fun.
And I would like to emphasize one more time, it's not about the perfection. You can fail, then do it again. It's a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely that's life, right? It has been fascinating learning about plant-based community resources from our panelists today. I hope this information will help you continue your journey to making healthier lifestyle choices. Thank you, Kim, Sherry, and Kaylee for joining our discussion today. And to all the viewers that joined us, I wish you well on your journey towards optimal health, one plant-based bite at a time. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.